It seems like it's work time again. Overnight, a little helper came in and did some work on the loom. So we're looking like this. Seems he was pretty busy. His braid over the loom, comes down the front, comes out here and runs along to the throttle body. And pop this off and have a look under here. And look at that. He didn't cut the zip ties off. And there's also a series of photos on my phone of the progress. You'll notice here I've put a noise suppressor tucked underneath the manifold so you can't see it. Oh, it wasn't me, my helper. Bit of ray chem through the center, coming out to each of the injectors, running along the inside of the fuel rails. I'm glad there was no audio on my phone because the singing late at night gets pretty terrible. I'm going to continue. It's going to the left hand. Now it's going to the right hand. Left hand. Right hand. You can see my brain's ticking over there, isn't it? And I'm certain that's going to get a few people asking questions. The next bit to do, the gearbox loom. Down to the gearbox for reverse lights and the speed sensor. This is the gearbox loom that was in it. It had that plug there, which it hasn't been plugged in. I can see there's dirt and dust in it. This one, I can see that it has been plugged in. That's the speed sensor. This one, I don't actually know what it is. There's no reverse lights on here. That's oxygen sensor. In this case, I put my standard type gearbox loom. I put in reverse lights, speed sensor, call it good. I'm also not putting oxygen sensors into this loom. The reason being is I'm wanting to put a wideband in. I've got a more budget type wideband on its way, the Spartan, and they're a great little unit. So I've allocated one for this job in the future because I know that the customer wants it right. He didn't actually give me a brief on the exact requirements. It was, make me a loom for my van, make it run properly. So I'm pretty much doing that. I think I can nail that. Build a loom, yes. Make it neat, yes. Make the van run properly, yes. So I'm pretty confident he's going to be happy. Time for me to stop talking and do some more work. I now have a gearbox loom. Comes down. Imagine there's the reverse switch, yeah. And this is the speed sensor. I did recycle, but it worked just fine. Start trigger. Let's talk about this, because I'm kind of thinking that this video, on the original loom, this went to the starter motor, this came out to the start. So somewhere around here there's a plug like that with the start trigger in it. I can work with that. I did do some planning here. So I've made up this lead. If necessary, it can be popped out, come around the other side of the starter motor and go up to that other connector. So we have ideal, it will be one of these wires by the ECU, but I have a backup plan to put it over here if necessary. I've laid out my new connectors. I'm going to do some prep, trim the crank angle sensor shielding back, get that ready. I'm going to crimp a whole lot of wires, and then we're going to discuss the pins of all the wiring. Yep, that's what we're going to do. So I'll be back to you soon. I'll get everything ready, and then we'll hammer out some terminals going on this loom and continue on to getting that ECU terminated up. The fun job of opening all the connectors when they supply them in these little point bags. Those are different. So I've got my injector plugs ready to fit, to crimp and fit, and I've got a whole lot of drug bags. Oh, if someone raided here, I'd look like a drug dealer, but I'm not. I just buy lots of connectors. Terminals crimped over the whole loom. Harness. We're going to throw some connectors on. I'll run through the pinouts quite quickly, but it may help somebody who's wiring up one of these. So this is like a multi-purpose video. How to wire it, how to fit this loom for the customer and his mechanic. Pinouts for connectors maybe, and a different way of wiring them. Right, let's get stuck in. 8 injector plugs. Now that's a better table, isn't it? Our injectors are these little thingies down the side. They squirty the fuel in. The pinout doesn't matter. If we look at this plug, this is a one off the vehicle, and it was a Sora. The black orange, which is in pin 2, is the power, and the trigger's in the other one. I can tell this because that one's got a black orange in pin 2, that one's got a black orange in pin 2, and this one will have a black orange in pin 2. If I look at this loom, it's a 3UZ loom. It's got a green white in pin 1. It's got a green white in pin 1 and a green white in pin 1. So on the Sora, 12 volts is in pin 2. On that LS430, 12 volts is in pin 1. Injector polarity, unless the manufacturer specifically says, such as possibly an ID injector, polarity doesn't matter. Easy. The left one goes in the left, the right one goes in the right, or vice versa. I am going to go with voltage in pin 1. And the trigger in pin 2. And why am I doing that? Well, it works well with my mind for keeping crank sensors in the right place, because crank sensors are trigger in pin 1, which is like a positive, and the earth in pin 2. And make sure that those terminals clip all the way in. Now I've talked about the grouping of the injectors, not groupies. They hang around bands, or groupers. They're a fish. Grouping. Oh, you know what? And it doesn't want to clip in this one. When they don't want to clip in, sometimes they just need a little pokey tool. There it is. And yes, this is my favorite pokey tool. I have used, this is either number 4 or number 5 of these pokey tools. Four down, 4 to go. So I have done a very short video on that grouping of those injectors, as I got distracted of myself. And these ones are grouped in 4 pairs of 2. If I use my hands, I'll stop working. With the 2 inside together on both sides, and the 2 outsides together on both sides. And then I will set this up semi-sequential. So in the ECU, it'll be turned on to sequential, and it will run through the injectors in a sequential type firing order. even though they are grouped together in pairs. There's another video about that, so I'm not going to go too much onto it here. Before you've crimped all the wires on, make sure you put your shrink wrap on. There we go. That's injector wiring done. It's pretty straightforward. 2 coil plugs. Really easy. Number 1 is the 12 volts, and it's the hole beside the clip. Red beside the clip. Hey, you guys didn't remind me to push the locking tab in that other one. Okay. Crank angle sensor. Number 1 is the signal, which is like a positive. Are you seeing why I put a positive in the number 1 on the injectors now? And there we go. It's also, I remember it as the one on the outside of the engine, furthest away from the engine itself, so closest to the outside. Right, cam angle plug. Same as the crank angle. Number 1 is the positive. Number 2 is the earth, or signal and earth. And that one clips in. Okay. This is the air conditioning wire. I don't know whether the air conditioning actually goes, but I've set it up for it. And number 1 is the positive. It helps that there is only one wire. Okay, EFI water temp sensor. This is the one that the world has a problem with and I don't, because I just replace them when I do an engine prep or at a wiring loom. So this one will have a new one sent down. I'll confirm that it hasn't already been done, because as the owner of this loom will watch it first. So what I'm going to do here, and these aren't polarity conscious because the sensor isn't grounded through the body, I'm going to put the signal in 1 and the earth in 2. I'm going to put them in the right way too. Just checking if you guys are paying attention. I have an idle speed control unit which plugs in right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the 12 volt in number 1. I'm not having much luck with going the right way in these ones. It's that same connector as the water temp, or same style terminals. That one fought me. Right. So we have the air temp sensor, and I have a boss for it. And I was going to weld it in about there. That's where I've planned for it. But I'm not sure what else is around here. So the customer will either let me know if he wants it welded in, or when they put the engine in place, they can weld that in a suitable place. Got a little bit of distance here, either there or back here. That's steel, same as the intake. So no points on where I'm going to put the signal. They're not polarity conscious, so it doesn't actually matter. A little bit of shrinky to shrink in there. There we go. And then I've got a boot to go on it. Okay. The igniter. I've done that in an igniter video, and throttle position sensor, which is actually on the other side, but the loom's long enough it comes over to me. So on the throttle position sensor, Toyota didn't play the game. They put the earth in number 1. And then they put the idle switch right beside the earth in number 2. I am running the idle switch in this one. Just fills up the hole nicely, maybe. One's going to need a pokey tool. The signal is in number 3. And the 5 volt is in number 4. Again, listening for that little click. In goes the clip. Engine is terminated. Now to terminate the ECU, I'm going to do some prep work again. We'll come back and poke some wires into the ECU.